I'm in my early 40s and I've only just found out that there's an actual name for what I would call my food stuff, my weird food things that I've had all of my life. I always just put it down to being really fussy with food and being an anxious person, but it turns out it goes so much deeper than that. My name is Emma, and I thought I would start this channel just to have a place to chat about all the struggles that I've had with food. And while I know there are plenty of corners of the internet covering all of the other aspects of food, like dieting and baking and cooking and coming up with amazing meals and nutrition, I don't feel like there's as much available about people who struggle with getting food in, struggling with appetite, struggling with certain textures and flavors of food. So I thought I would just create this space to chat about it. So the term that I'm talking about is called ARFID, Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. How that has materialized for me in my life is mostly just having no appetite or very low appetite. A lot of the time I struggle to get food in. And when I do, it's my menu is very small and limited. There's a lot of things that I just don't like. I don't eat a massive variety, so getting enough nutritional value can sometimes be an issue. I've had vitamin deficiencies. I find myself having to manage low blood sugar every single day. And actually, I always thought that I must have just had a low blood sugar issue. Like I thought I just inherently had low blood sugar. But every time I get tests done, everything comes back fine. I've realized now with ARFID that because I'm only eating small amounts, I'm basically just always having to top up. I'm just eating enough for my body to get what it needs, and then a few hours later I'm depleted again. So that causes the blood sugar crashes. I have had very low appetite for as long as I can remember. This goes right back through early childhood. I'm not sure. I'll never know whether I was just born a fussy eater or if it was a case of my environmental factors. There were a lot of things in my childhood that have caused disinterest in food, struggling to eat, all sorts of things. I tend to think I may have just been a fussy eater to begin with, and then all of these things were enhanced through my environment. And then it's created all of these unconscious behaviors around food for me. I've realized now that I do actually struggle with some textures of food. I hadn't put the puzzle pieces together until recently. And this is actually how I came across the term ARFID, and I was able to pinpoint exactly what is going on for me. So I had eaten some pancakes one day and immediately I felt sick for hours. For the rest of the day, I felt sick. And in the past, I would always think maybe there's an ingredient in there that my body doesn't agree with. I even cut out gluten for years thinking that that was the issue. And my sister is actually celiac. So, like looking at genetics, that was a plausible explanation. But now I realize it was never about individual ingredients, it was about their texture. So, there were a couple of instances over the past 12 months where I've eaten something that is soft and spongy on the inside and a little bit crunchy on the outside. And I have just felt sick all day. So I've realized now that I can't do soft, spongy textures like mushrooms, eggs when they're really thick, tofu, even the pancakes was enough to trigger that for me. So now just having that information and knowing that that is just not something that my body can do, it obviously sets my nervous system on fire and I just feel so sick. So it helps to know what are my safe foods and what aren't. So as I was researching this weird texture thing, that is when I came across ARFID, Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. And as I was reading through that, the typical symptoms of that or experiences for people can be textures that they just can't eat. For some people, it can be that they're afraid of choking or vomiting or like this bodily reaction to things that they eat. That's not necessarily it for me. Another big aspect of it is just not even being interested in food, not having any appetite, or when you do, it's very low. And so when you don't have an appetite, it's really hard to get food in. And that has been my lifelong struggle is appetite, especially when I'm stressed out and there's things going on in my life that are just a lot. immediately my appetite will just disappear, and then I can lose weight really quickly. Even when I'm sick, I'll lose weight really quickly because, again, I will lose my appetite. So I'm not feeding myself enough. I'm always eating every few hours because, as I said, I'm always trying to maintain my blood sugar levels because they just drop and I will get really faint. I have fainted many times in my life because my blood sugar has just crashed. So I feel like I'm always just trying to just eat a little bit, maintain blood sugar, make sure that my body is being fueled enough to get through the next 3 hours. So it's like I'm living in these 3 hour increments of just topping up. And it was explained really well online in this research I did that was just saying that's essentially what I have been doing, and it makes sense for me and probably a lot of other people with ARFID, is that when you eat, you're eating just enough. Like you're sort of going from depleted to just enough, depleted just enough, and that can cause a lot of lifestyle issues and a lot of health issues too for people who are really struggling with it. Another thing that I've struggled with food is very limited menu. Like I just don't like fruit. I've never liked fruit. I'll eat a bit of mango, but that's seasonal and they're so expensive. So I don't really have too many mangoes every year. Thankfully, I do really love avocado. So that's a good filling, like that's a good fat. So I can put that on crackers and toast and things like that. I'll do a little bit of apple if it's thinly sliced, but I mean, I don't reach for apple. I would probably only do that if I can dip it in hummus. So like, I just don't really eat fruit. Vegetables are quite limited. I prefer my food very crunchy. So like roast vegetables are good. I really like that, especially potato and sweet potato. I'll have like mixed stir fry veggies within a stir fry as long as everything's chopped up small. I do eat a lot of potato, mashed potato, baked potato, loaded potatoes. So thank God potatoes exist because that is definitely a staple in my diet. I think for me, one of the biggest things is just not getting enough fiber. I'm always trying to get more fiber into my body just to keep everything functioning properly. And because of that, because I'm leaning on carbs very heavily, and I think this is very common with people with ARFID, carbs are a safe food for a lot of us. It means that it's like bread and crackers and things like that. And it does include processed foods. And I don't love that I reach for processed foods. Like I am someone who wants to be eating healthily. But then sometimes I just hit these moments where I'm crashing. I just need to get some food in my body. I need something grabby. I don't have time to whip up a meal. I don't have any motivation or desire to whip up a meal. So you grab something grabby, and unfortunately that is processed stuff. So I know that is another struggle for people with ARFID. It's very common. I find that having yogurt in the fridge is a really good go-to because I can just have a couple of spoonfuls of yogurt. It can quickly lift my blood sugar, give me a quick bit of energy, and then I might have the motivation or the energy to make something a little bit more substantial. I've also found cooking meals for a family a real struggle. Like I don't love cooking. I don't think anyone with ARFID loves cooking. It's a chore. It's just something that has to be done. And with 2 kids, and like previously I did have a partner for many years, so there were 4 of us and I was the mum. I had to do the cooking. So I found that like I would just, without even knowing why I was doing this, all I knew was cooking at the end of the day was a struggle. So I would just try and cook during the day if I could, and then it would be something that we could heat up later. And now that it's just myself and the 2 kids, life is way easier in that respect. And I know that all of us have different food needs. This is not a household where we just have to sit down and eat the same meal at the end of the day and tough luck if you don't like it. That is not how I roll. Having my own food issues, I'm more compassionate to my kids and their needs and what they will and won't eat. So I'm often doing like a Monday cook up, and I might cook up 3 different meals, and some will go in the freezer and some in the fridge. And that means I don't have to cook dinner for a couple of days. Everyone has food that they like. They're teenagers, so we can all just heat up our food when we're ready at night. I'm really high on let's just make this as low stress and enjoyable as possible. I want everyone in my household to be enjoying their food because I've realized with this ARFID journey, it's not so much about fixing it or curing it. Not for me anyway. I can only speak for myself, but for me, it's about learning how to enjoy food, learning low effort ways to just make this journey a bit easier because it is a real struggle. And at the end of the day, I think food in bellies is more important than food purity. And in saying that, of course, I want all of us to be eating as healthily as possible. But at the end of the day, if the choice is I'm just not going to eat anything because I don't feel inspired by that at all, or I'll eat something that's not 100% perfectly organic and great, I'm going to choose that because food in bellies is better than no food at all. So, anyway, this is just a little intro to me and to my background with food and why I thought this might be a good little pocket of the internet to have a chat about some of these issues because I know I'm not the only one. Most people, we're living in a world where people are taking tablets to try and suppress their appetite. And for some of us, we would love to have more appetite. So, if this is you, if you resonate, let me know in the comments. Let's chat about it and maybe we can help each other out with some little hints and tips on keeping food as low effort as possible, but maybe a little bit more enjoyable along the way.